Hey, it's Jason. Welcome back to Hardy Brothers Outdoors. Thanks for joining us for episode 3 of our John Deere Compact Tractor Buyer's Guide. Today we're going to talk about the backhoe attachment, and because I didn't purchase it, Josh is going to talk a lot about his 2032 and why he bought the backhoe. But I'm going to kick off talking about why I didn't buy it. When I bought the tractor, my 1025R, it was 2016, I had 25 acres in West Virginia. I was primarily looking for a tractor that I could mow with, so I wanted to make sure I was really looking to be more efficient with mowing. I was mowing a couple acres, and I wanted to be able to do food plots, so I was looking for a brush hog, I was looking for a tiller. I really couldn't come up with the use case for a backhoe, and as a matter of fact, I struggled with the use case for a front end loader. That was something I didn't want. The dealer talked me into it. I'm glad I got it. But what I found with the backhoe is, I really don't have any regrets for not purchasing. It was an expensive add-on. I couldn't make the case, and I haven't regretted it. I think Josh has a different story, so I'll let him talk about why he bought his and how he feels about it.
Yeah, so in 2017, I bought the 2032R, and with that I bought the 270B. And the 270B, why did I decide to buy it? Well, I was buying for a bigger property, 70 acres. We now have 150, but for that 70 acres there was a lot of ravines and roads throughout the property that hadn't been maintained for at least 7 to 10 years. So I had a lot of drainage issues. I have a pond. I needed to make sure that I could maintain that stuff. And during the process of doing the research, I was justifying it with mainly that. I know I can go out and use it for trail maintenance and drainage maintenance. But honestly, I did a lot of looking around YouTube for how else can I use this thing, because I was trying to justify it to myself and to my wife. And as you can see, I was successful. But the real question for me is, when you're considering it, how are you going to use it? Are you going to dig stumps up? That's probably the #1 use case I see other people do. I haven't dug one up yet. I'm going to, just because it looks like it's fun and everybody else is doing it. But even a short time ago, I was trying to figure out, was this the right purchase? Did I do the right thing? And here's the primary reason why I think it was. It's at least a 45-minute drive each way for me to go rent a Traco. And I think a Traco would be a better solution than a backhoe. So I will say that, just based on the maneuverability and the direction you can dig and how you can move the dirt and that sort of thing. But at an hour round trip each way, I'm usually only here on the weekends when I have time to do work. That's just not even a reasonable use for me. More recently, I used it to dig up and locate my septic tank so that it could be serviced. I dug a retaining wall, and actually I have some footage of that we'll share. But I've started to find more and more use cases for it, and what I like about it is it's right there, it's available to me, and that convenience was probably the #1 thing. Storage, however, is one of the bigger challenges that I have. It takes up a lot of space. So if you're going to store it, unlike the 1025R where people have been able to build carts to slide it around, the way this one mounts, it has to sit flush on the ground for the tractor to get under it, and there's no way to put it on a dolly and move it around. So where you place it's where it stays until the next time.
So that's a good point, that there's the methodology of attaching and storing are very different for these tractors. And because we've got the 1025R, 2032R, 4052R, that's one of those things to keep in mind, that I would not have known that, and I didn't know it until I was helping Josh store his, and I think I had seen people build these carts to move them around, and then he explained why his is so different. So as I said, I know very little about it because I don't have one, but you can see the use case made a lot of sense for Josh. So and now I don't have to have one, because when I need one, I've got it. I've got access to one, so that works well too. It's a shorter trip to the rental department for me now too.
That's right. So there, I do have a full review of the 270B. We'll leave a link for it up above. But let's hit the next section.
Cool. So next up, we're going to talk about pricing and what it costs to add these backhoes on. So from a pricing perspective, I did a little looking again on johndeere.com to see what the list prices are out there. To have a backhoe on the 1025R is around $7,000. It's about $11,700 on the 4052R. You know, there's a big difference in what the cost is, whether it comes factory installed versus being installed after the fact. So those numbers are, you know, I'm going to say they're a little fuzzy because I've never purchased one. I don't have all the details. Josh has been through the purchase process, so he can give you a little more insider scoop on having one installed.
Yeah, so I'm going to go from memory here. In my 2032R review video, inside the description for that video, I have all the costs that I paid for my initial tractor. But I believe, because I looked at it the other day, I believe I paid about $8,000 for the backhoe. And what I don't recall is whether or not that included the Power Beyond hydraulics. So you have to have a hydraulic upgrade to do the backhoe. And that's not the same hydraulics that are the dual SCVs, the additional hydraulics on the back. It's specific to the backhoe. And so there's a lot of installation that has to go on, and I don't remember if 8,000 covered it all, but I think it did. So yeah.
Okay. I had something else I was going to say about the price on the back. I know what it was. The 1025R, I did see a sale price on it the other day. 1025R package with the tractor, the front end loader, and the backhoe. I want to say it was $20,999. I will double check the ad when I get back, and I'll post a picture of the ad, but I'm almost certain that was the price for the full package. So just to give you an idea, if you're out negotiating a 1025R with the loader and backhoe, I think that was the price, but I'll double check my ad.
Yeah, the other thing I forgot to mention, I saw somebody mention the other day that they didn't get it, they wish they had gotten it, and that they paid like $12,000. So that was probably all the installation and everything after the fact. And when I bought mine, they did not have it there available. They brought me my tractor, mid-mount mower, some other things, front end loader, and then came back and got my tractor a couple weeks later or a month later to put the backhoe on it. So I didn't have to pay extra for all of that, but I think if you wait and you get it down the road, not part of the initial, it's going to cost you significantly more. And again, 0% financing if you're already doing that. You know, take advantage of something that's going to run you, you know, nearly 10 grand.
Yep. Okay, so next up we're going to talk about when you go to see the dealer, the questions you should be asking when you get ready to buy a backhoe. Okay, so while you're at the dealer, this is the time that you've got that salesperson's attention. This is the opportunity to get answers to all your questions. Again, having not gone through this process, I'm going to toss it over to Josh so he can talk about some things you may want to ask the dealer about while you're there.
All right, so things that I would ask the dealer about that I didn't ask about was different options for the bucket. So they do sell different size buckets. I think this is the 12-inch bucket. It's great, but I'm getting ready to dig a water line, and I'm going to need to get a smaller bucket for that. I'd like to do as little bit of disturbance as possible with some of the digging that I've done. If you're digging drainage pipes and stuff like that off your downspouts, the bigger the hole, the bigger that you got to backfill, the bigger the indentation that you have. I would also ask about just the scheduled maintenance or the grease points on it, things like that. And then the other thing that I haven't purchased, I've seen a number of other people do, is if you want that articulating thumb that works in tandem with the bucket, if you're going to pick stuff up. I don't think I will end up with one of those. I mean, I've seen that they're pretty cool, but I think you may need another third function to add that. So I'm not exactly sure how that's going to work, and so it's probably good to ask the dealer about that if you think you might need it. Again, I'd like to get a grapple, and the use cases that I have where I think I might need that thumb should be addressed with that.
Okay. How about one of the things that I always suggest is getting the dealer to demonstrate installing and deinstalling the attachment. That again, if you've not had a tractor with hydraulic lines and all of the connection points, it can be a little overwhelming, and even the manual, you can try reading it, but having someone show it to you, it's hard to beat. So what's your experience been with that?
Yeah, so I'm extremely impressed with the way that this thing goes on and off the tractor. I won't say that it's simple, just like everything else. It doesn't work exactly, and there's always some variations. My experience is that there's a lot of steps, and getting them in the right order matters. Relieving pressure at the right time, switching the hoses at the right times. There used to be, and I don't know if they've updated it yet, but the Tractor Plus app that John Deere had was a very simple app. It actually was almost of no value other than showing you screenshots and giving you steps for adding and removing your attachments. They've now added all kinds of extra value around maintenance and what have you, but they took out the simple steps that show you how to use this. I used to use it all the time. You didn't have to be connected. I could just go through and make sure I was hitting the steps. I've done it enough times now in 4 years that I don't necessarily need to rely on it as much, but when you go a whole season or two and you don't use it, sometimes it's nice to just run through the steps. So my experience is when it works great. It sounds like it's extremely better than the process when say the 1025 has, because you just drive back on it and you use the hydraulics to lift it up underneath the tractor, and then you do the attachments. So when it works great, but I would definitely seek to get a demo, and then find a demo video. I'm going to make one at some point, but find a demo video that you have on hand that whenever you need it, you can just go to it quickly.
Yeah, and in my experience with the demonstrations with the dealer, don't let them talk you through it. Make them take it off. I want to see this backhoe sitting separate from the tractor, because my experience when I asked for demonstrations was, well, you unhook these two hoses, you flip these two levers, you do this and you do this. Easy peasy. And when you get home, you find out that the hydraulic hoses aren't coming off. Or I'm installing it and now they won't go on. And as much as I push, they won't go on. There's too much pressure. Why is that? Why is this not working? And those are things that the dealer should be demonstrating and talking you through. And they're never going to be as motivated to teach you how to use it as they will when they're selling. So my recommendation is, this is not a walkthrough. This is take it off, put it back on. You do it, and then let me do it, because I want to make sure that I'm not missing anything.
Let me add to that. So if they say, hey, when we drop it off, we're going to walk you through all of that. Did that happen for you?
They told me that.
Yeah, me too.
I didn't get a walkthrough.
So no slam on John Deere at all. This is really more of the sales rep potentially, and I love my sales rep. I've bought a lot from her since. But the expectation was the delivery guy was going to give me those that walkthrough. What happened was the delivery guy showed up, backed it off the flatbed. I asked him just to demo it for me. He goes, well, I'm not the normal delivery guy. He's out today. So they asked me to deliver it. Hey, I was thrilled to get my tractor, but from that point forward, I fumbled through and I learned it all watching videos, and videos are great, but they don't show you what happens when it doesn't go right. We try to do a lot of that because it doesn't always go right.
Yep, my exact experience. Great sales guy, delivery guy was a delivery guy. He was not he was not someone from the shop. He was not someone that was familiar with all the functions. So, yeah, good point. Last thing, I see people ask questions about the RPMs and what RPMs they operate the tractor at. Why does that matter?
Yeah, so the RPMs, you don't have to have them wide open on the tractor. It has to be running when you're running it, because you're running a continuous flow of hydraulic fluid. Finding that sweet spot is going to allow you to move the backhoe and curl the bucket and feather it. You hear the term feathering, where you don't just flip it out and dump everything real fast. You dump it nice and slow. You dig slow. That's all a factor of how much RPMs you're running. I think the sweet spot, I believe, is in the 1800 to 2000 range, so 18 to 20 on the RPM gauge. If I recall correctly, that's about where I have it. But you'll know. I mean, when you go to turn the whole thing, when the whole tractor's jumping and jerky, you're running too high on your RPMs. You know, dial it down. If it's creeping and you're going too slow, you know, bump it up. You'll find what works best for you and for your tractor. That's a great question, because I just assumed originally that I needed to have it wide open to make sure I had the most digging power, and that wasn't the case.
Okay, like every other episode, our next step is going to be to talk about safety. All of these attachments have some safety features that you should make sure and understand. So we're going to give you a couple safety tips next. So I'm going to hit the obvious or not so obvious, and then let Josh dig into the specifics of the backhoe. The tip that I have is just keep in mind that, you know, pretty much I shouldn't say pretty much, every state has a phone number that you can call for call before you dig. So make sure you know where you're digging and that the area you're digging is safe. So you don't want to dig up gas lines, water lines, electrical. If you're doing work for yourself, you may have a good idea where those things are. If you're doing work for somebody else, make that phone call. Somebody will come out and mark those areas for you, typically at no cost. And it could be the difference. You know, it could save your life. So that's my tip. I'll turn it over to Josh for the specifics.
All right, so as he said, I'm going to dig in here with the backhoe safety tips. First one is check out all the stickers that are on these tractors. I mean, they have put a lot of safety stuff right there for you to read. Don't ignore them, right? So these things have pinch points, places where you could get pinched. So you want to make sure that you're not getting into any of those areas. The backhoe swings, the arm moves, all of the places where you've got a pivot point. Anywhere that you have a pivot point, there is a chance to get pinched. You want to make sure that there's nobody around, so you're not running into them. So one of the things that I have told my children, and I make sure anytime there's other kids around, is you always approach from the distance, not from behind, and you always, you know, wave until I see you, but do not approach the tractor. So definitely the case on here. A couple of the key things. There are locks for the boom to keep it from swinging forward and side to side. Keep the locks in place when you're moving it. Same with the outriggers. Make sure those are locked so they don't drop. If you're driving down the road or something, these things could drop and catch and cause you to flip it or have some sort of accident, damage it. Other things is you don't want to dig on steep ground. So the outriggers are there to help you get leveled, but you know, avoid steep terrain for sure. And then there has to be ballast on the front end, so the loader has to be installed when you're digging. And the way I use the loader is I'll actually curl the bucket over and set it down to create another point of in addition to the outriggers to give some stability. So that's one of the key things that I've found is pretty important. It keeps you from, if you're putting downward pressure on here, you can feel the tractor move. There's a lot of power in this this digging, these hydraulics. So if you feel it getting squirrely at all, stop what you're doing. You know, reorientate. Make sure you've got all your points down. That's the key ones. But I'd say again, read the caution labels just to be extra careful. We're not here to give you all the lessons. We're just here to remind you that there are ones and that you should pay close attention to them.
Great things to talk to the dealer about. So last up is going to be negotiation tips. We'll jump into those and hopefully give you a few things to take to the dealership when you buy. Okay, so I don't have a lot of negotiation tips for the backhoe. You know, if you're going to buy multiple buckets, maybe as you add different bucket size buckets, you negotiate a discount on those. The biggest tip we have is buy it all at once. Buy it as a package, because you're going to pay more if you go back and have it added on after the fact. I mentioned earlier, I'm almost certain that I saw the 1025R for $20,999 as a full package. I want to say full price, list price, it was around 26 or 27. I'm going to publish the numbers so that you can see them. But there's big discounts that come with bundling. The 0 for 60, 0 for 72, 0 for 84, whatever that free financing is, dig into the details, make sure you understand, are you paying anything extra for that? But take advantage of the financing and I guess that's the big tip. You're going to pay a lot more if you want it later and you add it on. So unless Josh has anything, that's all from me.
All right, that's it. So thanks for watching. Hit that like and subscribe. We hope you're finding this to be useful. If you are a new tractor buyer, leave us a comment below. Let us know what you thought. If you're an existing tractor owner, let us know if there's other things that the new tractor buyers should be thinking about. And in the next episode 4, we're going to talk about mid-mount mowers and what series those are available on, which things you should consider. And thank you again so much. Remember to get outside, because outdoors is always in season. And we'll see you next time. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.